My guests are two folks, wonderful people who have been with me before. They are Keston Namco. He's the director of the Employers Consultative Association, and Ms. Jocelyn Francois, who is the CEO of said organization. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure as usual.
It is a pleasure to be here.
It is good to have you both here.
You.
I asked you here this morning because of something you were doing that is to serenade, or rather to further encourage employers in their commitment, one, to, surprisingly, workers' rights. And I say that because the ECA is a champion employer. You have been championing employers to do one thing, which is to understand the needs of employees in order for them to have a better working environment. I am going to ask Jocelyn if you would lay the groundwork as the purpose of the Employers Consultative Association for the uninitiated. What is the Employers Consultative Association?
Okay, thank you, Renne. The Employers Consultative Association, first of all, celebrated 57 years this year in existence. The organization was formed in 1960, and it really is, I would call it like the union of employers. During that time, of course, it was a very turbulent time in our industrial relations climate and landscape, and employers, I think at that time it was about 21 employers, came together to say, listen, we have to have a voice, we need to be heard, we need to let our views be taken into account, etc. And so the Employers Consultative Association was formed. Basically, our mandate is to represent our members in terms of anything relating to industrial relations, helping them to understand and, let me put into context as well, the Employers Consultative Association, by virtue of the large membership that we now have, which is close to 800, we have been recognized by the International Labour Organization as the most representative employer body in Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, part of our mandate, of course, is to advise employers, but from the context of, one, that international best practice. Also, you would know that Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to the ILO conventions. I believe at this time we would have signed about 21 conventions, international conventions on different aspects of work, in the country, etc. And therefore, we take our whole responsibility to our employers very seriously because, in a national context, we're talking our commitment to international labor standards, etc. And therefore, our role really is to engage and to interact with the members, employers in Trinidad and Tobago, and basically advise them on that relations with their employees.
It is one of the reasons I gravitated to your organization in the first place, because when you speak of the ILO, that is usually to the chagrin of many employers. So when the ILO and Employers Association mentioned in the same breath, it does take my attention.
Yes, but really, as you know, in the landscape, one of the conventions that we have signed on to is that tripartite. This is Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore for us very important is that relationship with government and labor. And it's not that we want employers to just go out there and do whatever they want to do and we condone it. It really is getting our employers educated on some of the principles, etc., so that when we engage with government and labor, we are able to come to some consensus and we are able to come to more harmonious type of relationship and, ongoing. I mean, we will never have that 100% harmony, but definitely that whole social dialogue that comes with that tripartite mechanism is critical to solving a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems that is, we're seeing right now in abundance in our country.
That is the voice of Jocelyn Francois. She's the CEO of the Employers Consultative Association. Indeed, a tripartite approach is only workable if you have an organization that represents a groundswell of employers. 800 members is something that is indeed very good. The climate right now is a very difficult one. Keston Namco, director, let me call you inside of here. These are very, very, very difficult times because as we discussed on one of your earlier visits, the first thing to do is to trouble in paradise, cut employees, do this, close down, do this, do that, but maintain expectation of profit. How are you dealing with your members' first obligation, which is to make profit, and the reality that the climate has changed?
Well, Renne, this is a very important dynamic. And as Jocelyn has just articulated, this whole tripartite and social dialogue process, this has been going on for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And efforts have been made to really get parties together, but it continues to slip away from the parties when they come to the table. And I think a lot of that has to do with the parties to the tripartite organization really have not been able to demonstrate that will and commitment to transcend personal and private agendas and focus on what is in the national interest. There's a lot of lip service that is being paid to that. Okay, let's come together. We can only succeed if we focus on what is in the national interest. But when you get down to the fundamentals that will drive that, for example, can we agree on a common shared understanding as to how we should go forward? And as you have said, that we spoke about, I've made reference on many occasions to the burning platform. The platform continues to burn. And we are just, I would have to say at this point, conclude that we are just sitting by. And nothing concrete, nothing compelling is really coming from the parties, which is, where do we go from here? How can we come together? Are we prepared to give up something in order for us to achieve what, as we describe, is in the national interest? And until we can get to that place, we're going to be talking about this over and over. I was hoping that at this point in time where, the reality has struck, there's no money. And as you quite rightly said, employers continue to talk about the reason d'etre for being in business is to make profits. But then I've lived long enough to understand that companies don't make profits. People do. And that's where some balance got to take place.
And there seem to be a misunderstanding, because you attack the profit aspect of it. Business is to make profit, but my point was the expectation of profit. If you're doing 500% and things have changed and you still think you should make 500%, there is a disconnect.
But I don't think, Renne, that employers, in the face of, because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of education about the economics. So we're not, fabricating what's happening in the economy. So, and I don't think, based on our interaction with employers, I don't think they expect the same levels of profit. I think employers have come to the point where even if they're looking at they're looking at the productivity issue as a matter of fact. They're looking at how can we, so yes, we may not earn the same levels as we enjoyed before, but can we get the employees to be more productive? How can we? And I think a lot of the questions that we get coming to us is, as the EC is, how can you help us to make our systems more productive?
Well, I know part of the tripartite discussion is with the government, but you also have yourself, I would assume, either you or Kirsten can answer this, as a buffer between the employers and the unions.
Sure, and it's really...
How well is that working?
It's really about how do you influence the kind and quality of behavioral changes that are necessary. So you speak to the union about, let's talk about, these are the facts. This is the balance sheet, okay? We can't run away from this. How can we work together to keep this enterprise going so that both parties can continue to exist?
Are you finding accommodating ears?
Well, in some instances,
Yeah.
And it really has to do. So on one hand, you have, I'm here to make profits. The other hand is saying, what about the enabling environment that is required? you're cutting here, cutting there, and what is being cut quite naturally would be headcount, investment in training and development, and those kind of critical things that one would expect under normal circumstances to prevail. So that the ECA has in fact been providing that, not really being a referee, more than what are the fundamentals of that enabling environment? What are the factors that are going to drive and bring a balance at the end of the day so that the employee can be productive? Because we are not for one moment encouraging employees not to be diligent and recognize that they have a responsibility. They do have a responsibility. At the end of the day, when you hear employees are not performing and so on, that's because the management is not insisting on the expectations and performance standards that would have been. I guarantee you that there are not many people in leadership roles who feel comfortable enough to sit down and have those very, well, I wouldn't say difficult conversations, but the kind of conversations that are required. You look at an employee in the eye and say, you are not performing. How can we improve on this? And those conversations, generally, people in leadership roles, they run away from it.
And just to support what Kesson is saying, at the national level, we're seeing a situation, and I know the labor body is going to, be upset with me, but you cannot, because things are not going your way, you cannot pick up your marbles and run away. You have to stay the course. Difficult times, challenging times, we have to sit at the table and we have to go through the issues and we have to bring it to the fore. We can't pick up our marbles and run. And right now, the NTAC, National Tripartite Advisory Council, the meetings and so have been suspended because, the labor faction, because they're unhappy with, the issues they have pulled out. They have refused to come to the table. So Mr. Nanku is talking, Mr. Nanku is talking about at the firm level where, we're saying, okay, talking with the employees, how can we get you on, let's engage. Engagement is one of the critical things that we're talking about now. But we have to engage at the national level. We have to engage at the firm level. If we are to get the best out of
I had Mr. Roger on with me 2 weeks ago, and that whole question of suspending participation in the tripartite grouping was discussed, and he said it was a temporary thing. We will see.
Temporary. The longer we take to come,
the problem
bring
is
the issues,
problem goes further down the line.
It is going to just keep us back. We can't afford that, not in this current climate.
Yes,
what else, why did it happen in the first place? If I am to influence change, I can't do that from the outside. I got to do it from the inside. So I would find myself around that tripartite table, NTAC, saying, guys, what you did is wrong. How can we move beyond this? I guess what the union is saying, Mr. Roger is probably saying, listen, this is not the first time. It's not the second time. It's not the third time. Why is it we continue to make these fundamental errors which strike at the heart of disrespect, as the union would say? Once you have a bargaining unit, for God's sake, be prepared to sit down and have a conversation. At the end of the day, in most instances, once it can be supported by fact and so on, the employer will be able to do what he or she can reasonably be expected to do.
And there will be adversarial positions. I mean, that is the very basis of this being set up.
Yes,
so you sit there and you keep hammering through on it. I'm not going to go on either side, one or the other, because usually there is a lot to go around, and everybody's got their view. You were celebrating as the representative of 800 employers, businesses. You are celebrating what is it? Your 7th anniversary? Is it your 7th?
The the recognition, the awards that we have. This is the 7th year that we're having it.
7th year. Explain to us what this is about, because this, I feel, at times you can just go to these tripartite meetings, you can just hit people over the head, but after a while you have to take a pause and show people appreciation for what they have tried to do. That is part of even what you do in businesses when you say at the end of the year, guys, sit down and let's all have a little drink or something, right? So tell us about this. This is an opportunity for employers to come together and be recognized. Tell me about that.
Let me just jump in here before Jocelyn provides the details and so on. This, we see it as an important barometer by which employers are able to measure and get feedback in terms of how they're doing along critical management practices. For example, engagement, corporate social responsibility, industrial relations practices. How are you adhering to that? How many matters you have that go before the court, that kind of thing. So this is a very important, and the ECA should, employers should see this as a tremendous opportunity, whether it's once in 2 years, 1 in 3 years, get feedback. Because at the end of the day, what this leads to is notwithstanding what industry you may be in, you are competing for talent.
Yes.
And as an employer, you want to secure the best talent. And if you want to secure the best talent, then you can only do that by getting feedback from your people as to how are we doing. We talk about sometimes being an employee of choice. Are we doing the things that really support that, that position? So it is very important. This is a very important barometer. This is why the ECA takes a lot of pride in terms of putting this activity on, because it is critical. Over to you, Justin.
And what I would say is I'm very pleased that despite, and this is the first year that we've gotten we have gotten the largest number of applications this year, which is a good sign. However, during the period of promoting it, and so I was a little not so happy by a lot of companies admitting and sort of saying to me, well, maybe not this year, we don't have this in place, we don't have that in place, which means it's a good thing, on the other hand, because it means that we have a lot of work to do in terms of helping them to get to those levels. So we have gotten a number of applications, so we're very happy about that. We will be, Mr. Nanku talked about the areas that we're looking at. One of the areas I think is critical to highlight, especially in light of this week being National Safety Week, is the OSH, how OSH compliant you are in your organization.
OSH, just for
occupational safety and health. And that is very important. It's on the forefront right now. The OSH authority is making a lot, actually going out there and doing a lot of visits, and employers are getting a little scared, but we know the importance of OSH because we're talking about lives, ensuring that we keep our employees and that sort of thing. So basically the competition is off. It's being evaluated right now on the 12th of May, which is next week, not this week, next week Friday. The winners will be, celebrated at the awards function, which is taking place at the Hyatt Regency. And, there are different categories, large, medium, and this year, large, medium, and small. And this year we introduce a micro category. So we are not leaving anyone out, Very important as well, and I think it's linked to some of what we've been talking about. We have introduced another competition inside of there, and that competition is where we are asking employers to tell us, we call it a call for solutions. We're asking you to tell us what are your solutions to some of the issues that are being faced. And the winner of that competition gets a chance to win a free vacation in the lovely Spice Island of Grenada, staying for 3 nights at Grenada's best resort, which is the Spice Island Beach Resort, an all-inclusive luxury beach hotel, and it's located on the Grand Anse beach, and we know about Grand Anse. So if you are the winner of the competition, this competition where you submit your entries in terms of what are your solutions to some of the issues and the problems that are being faced in our country right now, you get 2 airline tickets to Grenada, 3-night stay at the hotel in a pool suite, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and drinks. And the prize is actually valued at 40,000 TT
Mr.
dollars.
Nanku, Mr. Nanku, can I take part in that?
Spice Island is a AAA 5-diamond award winner. So it's really a premium prize that we have been able to secure. And we're asking, of course, employers, submit your entry. You have until the 5th of May, which is this Friday, for a chance to win.
And where they submit this to?
To the ECA, the Employers Consultative Association. The telephone number 675-9388 or 759-2148 or 2149. Or you can visit our website at ecatt.org. So we're talking about a stressful period in our country's existence, but here's ECA giving some lucky employer, an opportunity to relax and enjoy and kick off the stress.
Well, that's one good thing, but I also take this because I was listening to when, and thanks for being gentle on me having the name. Keston was saying earlier that while he was talking about what it's about, or both of you speaking about what it is, it sounds to me like a gentle way of chastising you. You didn't win the award. Work harder next time.
Yes, I know, but remember I said...
You need that feel of confidence.
Yes, but I remember I said one of the things we say with the competition, it gives you a chance for an audit, a free audit for your company.
That's right.
Where are the areas, that you need to work on, and we can help you work on those areas.
Well, I think it's very important. The country would agree, everyone I am sure would agree, that we have to get this tripartite initiative working, because only through dialogue, I always say conversation and not confrontation.
Yes.
Because it's the only way we get anything done. All right. Thanks both of you for being here as always.
Great.